Years later in 1823, after the British had left, a man named William Montague Ferry and his wife Amanda were sent to Mackinac Island on a mission. And that mission was to spread Presbyterianism to the Native Americans and new American residents of Mackinac Island. Ferry was from Granby, Massachusetts, and ended up being ordained at New Brunswick Seminary in New Jersey. It was a common practice for newly ordained ministers to do missionary work for the United Foreign Missionary Board. Native American boarding schools were being set up all around the country at this point, as Anglo-Americans were lusting for land and resources in this new country, and Michigan was looked at as the unincorporated western part of the United States, as it wasn't yet a state. Fur and lumber were plentiful in Michigan, and the fur trade was still booming in the 1820s because fur hats were quite fashionable back in Europe. But there was one thing standing in the way of having a monopoly on using the land and its animals to attain capital, and that was, of course, the Native Americans who already lived here. It's common knowledge that Anglo-Americans genocided these indigenous people, but what is less talked about is the Native American boarding schools indigenous children attended after they were already subjugated to slaughter and sickness. Many kids were forced to go to these boarding schools where Anglo-Americans would teach them their culture, the English language, and usually a form of Christian religion. In some schools, they would even beat the children if they spoke their native language and not English. They were essentially setting up the next generation of Native Americans to be assimilated to the ways of Anglo-Americans. Part of this was due to eugenics and the belief that Native Americans were an inferior race and that their culture needed to be brainwashed out of them, but it was also so that they wouldn't rise up against Anglo-Americans and demand their land back after white Americans used their enhanced weaponry to slaughter them and then force them to sign unfair treaties with the looming threat of more war. The children at these schools were even forced to cut their hair while here, and due to them being forced to speak English, it's the reason some native languages have been lost and are not spoken today.